I see Tammy was able to share her screen, so that's good. So I am Lisa Carlin. I'm with the Career Services Office at Fort Hays State University, and as I mentioned, I have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker. Tammy Wellbrock is going to share with us how to cultivate your resilience, something that's really critical, obviously, for all of us right now. Tammy is a professional speaker, trainer, and coach, and the owner of Girl Twins Solutions. Before starting her own business, she spent 8 years as the president and CEO of the Hays Chamber of Commerce. She's a 2-time alumnus of Fort Hays State University, and currently she's serving as the interim director of our Alumni Association. I know you're going to enjoy her enthusiasm and humor, and so I'm going to turn it over to Tammy.
Thank you, Lisa. Lisa Carlin is certainly a dear friend, and I had given her all this other bio, and I probably was not as kind to myself, and so thank you for being kinder to me, Miss Lisa. One thing, though, she did neglect to tell all of you is that my favorite color is yellow, and that's why I picked Fort Hays State. Go gold, but black and gold. So certainly that has continued to be a theme of mine, and I really like to have fun, and I think humor is certainly a big part of becoming more resilient and being able to deal with what we have going on. So let's begin. This is certainly going to be talking about resilience. Well, and I think, though, everybody needs to just get to a place where they can, and hopefully we're seeing everybody a little bit as well, but I know you just had lunch. I'm guessing you're like me. You were eating at your desk. So we're just going to get the blood pumping a little bit, because certainly all of these activities, as well as questions and the direction we're going, is to it's exercises to help with resiliency, believe it or not. And so first off, I think everybody here will probably stand, but you need to stand if you agree that you are sick of Zoom meetings and you're ready for a vaccine to be created. Let's all stand up. Woo! Okay, now we'll get to the real ones. All right, so you can sit back down, stand up at this. Do you exercise on a regular basis? Stand and declare. Okay, I'm going to keep going. Yeah, it's going to be like a little mini exercise. Do you practice meditation or yoga? Stand and declare. Do you journal? It kind of did, but I'm not going to stand on that one. Do you make sleep a priority? Seeing a few people standing. Good for you. Do you take on new challenges? Good for you guys. If you'll notice, I didn't do a lot of standing. So maybe you guys should listen to what I say and not necessarily how I live, because I kind of feel this way sometimes. Tried yoga, but oh well. So if you're not sitting, please take a seat and we're going to keep going. But just to tell you a little bit about myself that Lisa didn't share is I did become an entrepreneur, and I'm very pleased. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and if I can give any of you budding entrepreneurs any advice, and that is, don't start your own business a few months before a global pandemic. It's not a great business model, especially if your business model is based on a lot of conferences and a lot of big groups. It doesn't work so well. And so when President Mason here at Fort Hays State University, I do live in Hays, Kansas, and when she called to see if I would be willing to serve in this one-year interim leading the Alumni Association, which ironically enough, I worked here around 23 years ago, following whose footsteps, but Lisa Carlin's footsteps as the assistant alumni director. So it feels great to be back home, but it certainly was a great opportunity to be able to continue my journey of being able to help people like such as yourself, but also to be able to just continue to grow an entity, an organization that I love dearly. So thank you for letting me be a part of today. My heart certainly is with everybody. I mean, certainly every one of us are dealing with a unique world. I mean, when we're dealing with a global, an entire planet Earth issue, it's pretty major. And you know, they're not necessarily answers pending so much yet with a lot of our I guess, guidance with in terms of COVID, but we know stress is going to be a daily part of our life that we've been living for some time. So let me just first share before we continue on some things that I think will be helpful for you in terms of your own journey with dealing with stressors and building a more resilient you. I am not a counselor. I am not a therapist or a psychologist or any of those other kind of just words. I am giving you some advice that I hope will help you, but I certainly realize that we are in unprecedented times, and stressors, even excluding COVID, stressors can be very serious. And so there's a difference between becoming resilient and perhaps taking a different route and seeking some professional assistance. So keep in mind, we're making a distinction here. And I also want to just make the disclaimer that even though I use humor very much as a key component, I'm not making fun of or putting down anybody that is really dealing with some very tough things in their life. So, and I certainly don't want to make fun of COVID because it's serious and we have some dear loved ones that are dealing with that. So that's my disclaimer. So let's just kind of go for this in terms of stress and resilience. Stress is going to happen. We know this. And resiliency is really that opportunity to try to develop within us our ability to deal with some of those stressors. And we're going to have those moments where maybe I've conquered this area of stress, but I haven't conquered that area of stress. And so resiliency is just really a tool to help us live through these odd times that we're going through. But let's talk a little bit more about what resilience means. It is a mindset. It is so much more than though just bouncing back or dealing with those kind of tough times. But it's being able to utilize those times and to grow meaningfully, to become stronger through that learning experience, through that journey. And hopefully though, through that mindset, it's also maybe reteaching yourself how to look at things that are stressful, but maybe you can look at it and define it differently so that in your head and heart, it's not as scary. It's not as deep or fearful. And so it's certainly something that we should all strive to become more resilient. I think we do desire that. It's just a matter of how do we make that happen. But let's at least move forward here, understanding it's a mindset, okay? So continuing, resilience key points. I think this is important to share. There are aspects in your life that you can control, you can modify, you can grow because of it. I love if you take the analogy of being in a raft going down the river, you know that you can control the type of raft you want to be in and how durable that raft is. You can control how many people are within you dealing with that raft, how many oars are in the water helping guide. And you may several times be going through these rough waters. Well, now maybe you've learned this particular river, so to speak, and now you know how to navigate a little bit more effectively through that. That's really what resilience is. And unlike maybe other traits, resiliency is something you can learn. It's a muscle that you have to keep working at to get it stronger. And those are just key points. I'm not a fan of reading the PowerPoint slides. I know you can do that. But I do want you to really take a part of the fact that it is going to take time. It's going to take intention on your part to be able to work out that muscle of resiliency. So the key here, focus on what you can control. Understand the difference of where you are maybe just going to have to deal with it. We know COVID is something we have to deal with, but how we reframe and how we think about COVID in our mind is a controllable aspect. So let's keep going. There are 4 components to resiliency. You can kind of almost think of them as strategies, and we're going to delve into each one of these. You all will have a chance, I know, to ask questions. I'm not sure if we go to unmuting and asking questions or through the chat, but if you do have something, maybe get Andrew's attention and he can interrupt me while we're going. But so these 4 areas: connection, wellness, healthy thinking, meaning. Let's dig deeper into these. So connection is certainly that awareness you are not alone on whatever journey you are dealing with. And so it's not just about focusing and finding those individuals, it's about finding people in your world that you trust and that are compassionate and understand your journey enough to be able to validate those feelings that you have, that they're real, that they're important. And those people that are very much trustworthy enough that you can be more vulnerable with them, those are the type of people that are going to help you, in essence, rowing down that river of life. And so that, for some people, that is a one-on-one connection. Others, it could be met virtually. And so the level of connection doesn't necessarily mean where, but you know those people that you can trust, and hopefully you can surround yourself with people that can be part of that connection cycle. Wellness, we're going to explore a little bit more, but I do think it's important to realize this is about self-care. Of all the things with resilient, I'm going to guess there are people that do things better. In fact, I have commented often, my friend Lisa, she is great at the connection piece. And I struggle with the wellness piece in the self-care. And that's really more the physical aspects of managing your stress, being able to exercise, to sleep well, to be able to set boundaries and setting boundaries may mean being comfortable and telling people, no, I can't stretch myself any thinner than what I've got. And so wellness is understanding also that stress is a realistic aspect. We're going to try to manage it, not eliminate it. So at that point, we're going to talk more about the wellness piece, and I'll come right back to that. But again, I think it could be things that you can control. You can control the fact that you exercise. Shame on me for not doing more. So hopefully you're better than me. Healthy thinking, though, is that activity that I think is at the core of resilience. If you think about resilience being that mindset, reframing the thoughts of how you think about things is an important piece of being able to cope with the stressors that are coming at us. In fact, to be able to change your perspective, that's one of the things that I not only have been fascinated with offering coaching as a profession, but I too seek coaching. And coaching is that connection with a professional that really sees you as not broken, but as having the answers within you. And one of the healthiest things that I have experienced during my coaching is I share with my coach, gosh, I'm really dealing with XYZ, and it's creating all that tension inside of me, and I think of it as very negative. And she simply helped challenge me to look at it from a different perspective. Here's things you can do to influence your own healthy thinking. So I got to review my notes here, but meditation is something that it's not just for the gurus or the people that have, peace out, and we used to call them hippies. Sorry if any of those people are that, but I'm really getting into my older life here, I find meditation being something that has really spoken to me. And the American Psychology Association, APA, said even for 5 minutes, meditation is, and I quote, connected with increased resiliency in stress management, depression and anxiety, pain, sleep issues, and overall sense of self-regulation. That's a big part of becoming resilient. And if you could spend just 5 minutes of your day meditating, what other ways could this help you? So some other ways of healthy thinking is visualization, which is another word of basically focused daydreaming. If you cannot see it, you cannot achieve it. That's, of course, a great slogan that we've seen on bumper stickers and stuff. But truly, to make sense of change, you're going to have to be able to visualize, be intentional, be purposeful on what change is desired. And you're going to have to be able to see that. Another aspect is mindfulness. Brene Brown, I absolutely love Brene Brown, but she talks about it being in the moment. And a quote from her is, mindfulness requires that we not over-identify with thoughts and feelings so that we are not caught up in this negativity. And I myself, especially when it comes to healthy thinking, I need some of these other aspects because I can get almost overwhelmed by the emotional noise that takes place in my own head. And I'm sure you can too. So hopefully those are some thoughts there that will help you. But the fourth component is really about that bigger purpose, finding the meaning behind your actions. I know there's a phrase in a book along refilling your well and being able to put back into you the energy seeking, the items and the activities and the thoughts that bring you energy. One of the things that I tend to do, and I didn't realize this until this research that I've had in looking more into resiliency, is I was in my previous job, I was burned out, and I was working the job, I was living the job that I thought fit me to a T. So why would I burn out if that was indeed the best fit for a position for me? And so it's really started this own self-exploration. And it obviously is why I'm here today, because I've shared some of this journey with Lisa. But it's being able to put into your life the things that do mean important and are purposeful for you. And I found that when I got stressed, I would eliminate those, thinking that, well, I'm too busy doing X, and so I'd give up Y, even though Y would give me joy and refill my well. And so I wasn't then, I was just pretty much spending my day not doing the bigger purpose. And so that's where, when I asked you earlier on the Stand and Declare, if you take the time to learn something new, that is one of the most simplest activities that you can do to help bring a greater level of resiliency. That is a great resiliency exercise, just by going and learning something new. And so, and it's something you can control. And it can also help you in putting the focus not on you, but on somebody or something else. So hopefully this is all making sense, but let me keep going. I just love this little comedic interruption. And I can't hear your laughs, so I'm just experiencing in my own head a roar of laughter because you're just so impressed with my wittiness. But so I'll keep going. I did share earlier that there is what I call the stress cycle. And I've read a book, hopefully it's Burnout. Oh, and hopefully I have this, I don't have my notes in front of me on this book, but this book talked about the 3 physiological responses that we've always heard of: fight or flight. I myself had never heard of freeze. So if you think about this, your brain in a split second, whenever it's dealing with a stressor, is either going to fight, it's going to do something, it's going to flight, it's going to try to escape, or it's going to freeze. It's going to play dead. And these are both neurological and physiological shifts that are happening in our body that aren't necessarily always things that we're thinking about. They're not necessarily intentional. But the reaction is including hormonal activity. It's making your heart beat faster. Your blood is pumping faster and harder as well. You're breathing more quickly. Your muscles tense up and your sensitivity to pain diminishes. And as well as your senses are heightened. All of these things help you survive. And that worked well in the caveman era when it was definitely, have to go into survival mode. But our bodies are still in tune to go into that survival mode, even though we're not necessarily at risk for a life-ending stressor. We still go through it. Our body doesn't understand the difference of coming face to face with a lion as compared to getting this report due by the deadline. It's the same physiological responses. So I think it's interesting that they're in this stress cycle, your body's going through all these physiological things, and you need to do something to complete that cycle. And completing the cycle is telling your brain you are safe. It's important to deal with the stress, because if you don't at least try to manage stressors, you're not going to develop a more resilient you. So that's why I share that. So let me continue. These are all activities that help you complete that cycle. The number one item on this list that is the easiest and the most powerful is physical activity. You allow your body to be able to go through all that physiological tension and everything that's happening within your body, and you give it a release. But you can, if you think about the 4 components that we talked about, it goes hand in hand. Affection, creative expression. That creative expression could be writing in the journal. It could be blogging on your website, or it could be just creating some art. But also laughter and humor are so important. And it seems wrong, but many of us have experienced a good, healthy, hearty laugh in the most oddest places, at a funeral. And we talk about our loved ones who have passed, and we think about something that they did that may have brought us joy. That's part of the way of completing this cycle and being able to continue. And again, that positive social interaction, we talked about that in terms of the finding the people trustworthy that can help you through your moments of stress. All of this is really important. We'll come to breathing in a little bit, but I think it's interesting that I had read that even if you were to go and give somebody a hug, well, we're giving hugs all the time, and obviously COVID, I miss my hugs, but even a 7-second kiss, 7 seconds of kissing another person can help give you a lot of the same elements that physical activity can do. And if you think about it, if you go up and kiss a stranger for 7 seconds, that's going to be awkward. So there's a level of trust, a level of intimacy that you need to have with that person that you walk up to for 7 seconds to give them a kiss. And try that with somebody that you love dearly that won't slap you in the face. But 7 seconds of kissing another person can help complete the cycle. And I find that amazing of how many different ways our bodies can be in tune to that. So let me continue. I do think, though, the difference between those people that have become more resilient is they do something. They are doing something with purpose and intentionality to not just complete the stress cycle, but they're motivating, they're bouncing off of this experience to become a more resilient self. And resiliency, again, not just bouncing back, but it's the learning from it. And through that learning, if you've learned an easier route down that river, you're going to take it next time, and you're going to be more capable and more strong to be able to deal with whatever's coming your way. So I love the drama here. So when you're like me and you got to be dramatic, maybe it's just best to go outside and cry, but take your mask if you are going to have to do that. So again, I'm hearing the roars of laughter. I talked to you a little bit about breathing, and breathing is so simple. If we can literally reduce some of our stress to be able to bring clarity and mindfulness to our day by doing a simple breathing exercise, mind blown, mind blown. And you know what? I know this, and I will be in just the depth of maybe a stressful situation, and I forget to breathe. But I'm not a smoker, definitely not putting down anybody who does smoke. I just am not one. But one of the reasons why people that do smoke seek that, they're getting a break. Non-smokers usually don't take a break. Shame on us. Secondly, smokers, even though it may not be the most healthy breathing, they are in the act of breathing. And there is just something about that, so it may not even be the nicotine that's giving them a little bit of relaxation. It could just be the breathing exercise itself. So keep in mind the 4-7-8 breathing techniques. There's lots of other techniques. In fact, doing this research, let me just share, I had understood, and I'm not an expert, but if you, okay, this is weird, but if you close one nostril and try breathing out of one nostril, breathe for several deep breaths, and then switch and close the other nostril and breathe through the other nostril, that can actually switch your right and left brain from a creative, and it may help people be more artistically creative. It may help give focus. It may get you to, and if you can then breathe equally through both of your nostrils, then you're utilizing fullness of your brain. So you can go try that on without a video in front of you and see if that actually works. But there is something to that, I've actually started using some of those breathing techniques when I'm having mental block or writer's block, to just try to do something to spur up my creativity. So we're not going to do this exercise, but hopefully, and I think, Lisa, I've got you on my screen. Can you nod either yes or no? Will everybody have a chance to get this PowerPoint slideshow after this is all said and done? Okay, so you can come back and look at that. But even at that, through my exploration of meditation, and I am certainly a novice when it comes to meditating, I'm fascinated with how breathing is such a big part of it. So one of these days, I think I am going to snap. And you know, really, there's something kind of funny and not so funny about this little picture, because I think that's what my biggest fear is. I never really, and I think you guys, you wouldn't be in your jobs if you weren't very concerned about how your team works together. And if you snap, you know, you're going to have irreparable damage that you're going to have to relationships, to reputation, etc., culture. And so we really do want to try to do what we can not to, oh, sorry. No, I'm screen sharing. Where did it go? There it went. You still see my screen? Hopefully you don't see that. I was trying to get the okay, good. So, but I'm seeing some chats. I'm sorry, I'm not technically savvy to go get those chats if you're asking me questions. So, but with that, I'm going to keep going. Your smartphone is a tool that can really provide you a lot of opportunities, from utilizing your timer to utilizing different apps. And I just put a few apps here. Calm probably is the one that I was most familiar with because they do a great job marketing. I don't want to pay for it. That sounds terrible, but you know, if I could be better and happier, what's a few dollars every month? But okay. So anyway, don't judge me on that. But I found the Insight Timer, and it has like 40,000 some different songs to music, to guided meditation. And my husband and I are now hooked. Every night we listen to an hour-long music, and it has put us, I have slept better because of that silly little music done every night. And then as soon as it's done, my phone, you know, it's on the charger and it just goes dead. Or I mean, not dead, but it just goes off. And so we just fall asleep to it. I'm really a fan of that one. But these are some others. And I think it's funny to see the Colorify, because what is it about even the adult crayons and coloring that really tends to be so relaxing? So here's some other, again, I'm not going to go through these, but here's some other different podcasts, because I know that podcast provides a really great source of whether it's meditation or just some different ways to refill your well. Here's some things that I found that might help you. Same continued. YouTube videos. The Honest Guys I thought was really funny. Michael Seeley is more music. And the blogs, I'm just a big blogger and I just like that stuff. So anyway, use those as you wish. I'm at the point now, though, that I would love to answer any questions that you may have. And I guess let me just see if I can reach into I'm going to stop sharing right now. But with that, let me get to my chats. So is there any, oh, thank you, Andrew. I'm seeing here that you've got insighttimer.com. So with that, is there any questions that you may have? Go ahead and unmute yourself. I think, Andrew, they can do that, right?
Yep, absolutely. Everyone can. I just thought I would share, and I put it in the chat too, like when you talked, or when you had that slide with that cat that was like growling, it just really resonated with, because like, for instance, this week was the first week I came back into my physical space, and it's just relearning how to work with others, how to see others, how to respect the distance, of course, too. But as I said in the chat, you know, we can no longer just hit mute or stop our video when we need to, you know, have a reaction anymore. We have to remember and relearn how to mask our face or how to be appropriate with our face. So I just thought that was really good.
You know, and to even go further, hold on one second. I've realized that when I'm doing this, that now my eyes have to be more expressive, and it doesn't matter how well I mouth the words and enunciate, that still doesn't necessarily get the message across. But you're so right. I mean, and for that matter, we maybe, some of us have been told, hey, we can go back to work, and God forbid are we going to be told now we got to go back home, you know. And so and here at the alumni office, we're trying to come up with homecoming, and what does that look like? And all of you guys have different events that you're dealing with, and I can't even imagine in terms of onboarding employees during this time. Luckily, I was hired during the COVID and was able to inherit a team that I did know, but that certainly has provided challenges. We've got something here from Dana. What ideas do you have for communicating with colleagues who may forget to wear masks or comply with the new guidelines in our physical space? Well, let's talk about that first. And the second question is, how do we cope with ourselves so we don't get so frustrated? You do a lot of breathing. No, you know, interestingly enough, event planning is certainly a big part of my background. And one of the things, of course, you'd have to remember to wear this as well, but one of the things that these events are doing is they're going to red, yellow, or green little bracelets. And that indicates right away, I'm seeing some head nods. If you're wearing red, it means stay away. If you're wearing yellow, hey, come talk to me, but be pretty distant. And green is, yeah, I like to hug, despite. And so it's interesting how people are figuring out different ways to do that. So in terms of the colleagues not wearing, I think there's a difference between what position you are. Obviously, if you are the person they report to, you're dealing with policy and you're going to have to do the enforcement accountability. I'm guessing, Dana, the spirit behind that question is more from just a peer-to-peer relationship. And I think that's an area of, when I say setting your boundaries, I was really more meaning those intrinsic and hidden, invisible boundaries. This may be one of those where you're setting a physical boundary and just say, hey, I respect your right to not wear a mask, but I need one, you know, and I think you have the right then to say how you want people around you to be. And that's a part of a communication. It's a part of respect for all, including yourself. And I think you should have the confidence and the courage in moving forward. If anybody else has, though, comments there, I'll shut up.
I was just going to say, Dana, I completely agree with your question and your feelings, because here we're in one big building, the Career Center, along with another department here on campus. We share a building, and we're already having kind of different views of some policies and how to approach some things. And there's even like stanchions that are set up to divide our spaces now, and our shared spaces are kind of closed off to everyone right now. So it's going to be really weird to navigate that, and even, you know, to still have that sense of community and collaboration, but then seeing physical barriers separating us. So I mean, that's a really interesting thing that I'm experiencing, at least in my work environment.
I think it's also, thank you, Andrew, for sharing that. I think now back to your second part of that question, how you cope so you yourself don't get frustrated, it's also realizing that there are so many observations we do during the day that we can control our interpretations. And I think we should check on those interpretations, because masks, and I'm not wanting to get into a political debate with anybody, but obviously masks have been equated with political, I guess, parties or whatever you want to say, at least, and that doesn't necessarily mean people wearing a mask or not wearing a mask has anything to do with that. That is one interpretation. Another interpretation could be a health issue, and you know, whether they're wearing it or not. So I think one of the ways to reframe, and there's a whole different probably topic there that I have actually trained on, and that's interpretations and observations. And so to test yourself and to realize that your first instinctual way of interpreting a situation is not necessarily the reality. And so you will, if you can at least consider there's multiple realities that could be part of this, I think may help you in not just immediately being triggered by it. So hopefully that helps.
Tammy?
Yes.
So you're back in the office, sort of, I guess, managing a staff, at least for a 1-year term. What are some things that you're doing to help keep your staff in a resilient mindset?
You know, that's an interesting question, because right now it is a new team for me. I've only been in the position now for 6 weeks, and I am still learning where they're at. And so, in fact, Shonda Fast posted KLC principles. Kansas Leadership Center has been a big part of my background and my training. And so self-care, managing self is an aspect that is part of the KLC. And so I'll tie that to your question, Lisa. First and foremost, I'm getting to know this team of people. And the one thing I can control is my reactions to them, my interpretations of how they are behaving or acting or speaking, writing, and then and trying to also avoid any triggers that I may have. And so, for instance, when I came on and I'm here in the office, but we're not back to work. And that's still yet a few weeks away. I realized that different people in my team would always mute. And that was a trigger. I mean, it's just 5 of us. Why are they muting? You know, when we're in a conference, we mute to not get background noise. But I was kind of thinking that, you know, and then some of them always do this. Well, I don't know their setup, but they're obviously looking at me on a monitor up here. But you don't always know that because, you know, at first I was interpreting the mute meant that maybe what I was saying wasn't necessarily important to them. No, it's because their spouse is also in the room and they got co-space, or kids or whatever, or dogs, because that happens. And so I think part of the biggest thing I'm doing right now is to keep my own self into check. And then just to provide support and a listening ear and maybe some coaching for them when they need it. So I'm still trying to determine how I can fit into that individual connections. So that's what I'm doing right now. It's just so new. And I do believe I'll just keep checking in with them individually and as a group, because I do think some people are not as free in sharing with the whole group. And I believe very strongly that there are some people that are the louder ones. Oh yeah, I'm hearing here from Andrew, intentional communication, managing expectations. Perfect. And at that point, there are people that are more reactive and they're going to be more action oriented and they participate. And then there's going to be your reflective natured people. And I'm give them enough time to be able to absorb all this change that's happening. And so trying not to be a bulldozer myself, because I kind of tend to have that personality trait. Thank you for asking that question. I'm curious though, I'm not the experts. What do other people share? And then I guess we did get a question. I'll finish that. Does anybody have anything to share that maybe? Okay, seeing none. Ashley asked, are there any exercises for helping teams understand each other's stress responses? I think, to me, the biggest exercise I do is leading the conversation on more how people define different things. So I don't have a direct correlation in terms of stress and an exercise, but I do really discuss with my staff the difference between an interpretation and observation. Most people, until they've have that conversation, I don't think some people do, some people don't. And even going through that, defining the difference isn't always, people don't always get it very easily. So we really try to use shared language, whether it comes to stress, whether it comes to culture, but at that point, also working with individuals on their own triggers, especially if you see a trend that this person's always mad because, and I'm going to use Dana's point, so-and-so doesn't wear a mask and that always makes the other person mad. You know, those are triggers. And so how can you help somebody through those triggers? Do other people have ideas on how you deal with stress that you want to share? I just really believe that this is not me being I'm a facilitator of all of you guys' knowledge as well, versus being this expert coming to you. So has there been a number of people that, I mean, if you are not familiar with Kansas Leadership Center, I certainly would like to put a plug in for them, and that's not benefiting me in any manner. But I've had the opportunity here at our local community, our chamber, as when I led the chamber, I became a facilitator for our local leadership program, and we call it Leadership Haze. And I'm assuming that is something that certainly is in the state of Kansas. But you yourself, if you were to participate with a local leadership program, if they are at all affiliated with the Kansas Leadership Center, more times than not, you can go for free or a very reduced discount. And so I highly recommend that. And it was through that journey that started me realizing more of that mindfulness. And so I am, if you have not yet watched the video that Brene Brown has on Netflix, vulnerability, yeah, Julie's saying yes, that is an amazing. I watched it once and then I went back through and made my husband watch it. I can't remember the name of it. Lisa, I know you've talked about it. Julie or Lisa, do you remember the name of that Brene Brown?
I don't know. Her podcast is called Unbroken, I think, but I can't remember the name of the podcast. I think if you just search Brene Brown.
Are you talking about the TED Talk?
No, she's got a video on Netflix. It's like a stand-up, I think, isn't it, Tammy? Like
Yeah.
a stand-up.
It's like an hour long. I'll just do
It might be a TED Talk stand-up. I mean, it might be, Lisa. But
I've seen one that was a TED Talk, but
She
it's
has
been a while.
She has a TED Talk and Netflix presentation, but her pod is called Unlocking Us.
Oh yeah, Unlocking. It's good.
And the Call to Courage.
Mm.
The Call to Courage is the Netflix show. I think it's still on, but you probably can Google it and find it there too. And it to me that there's courage is needed in a different manner, and it's not always confidence. It's courage in the sense of being willing to kind of, well, I mean, you know, what do they say? The first step is recognizing your own ability or inability or weakness. And so to be able to have the courage then to see your own weaknesses and your own vulnerabilities, to be able to move forward with that. Thank you, Jared. You made a comment. Jared Meitler said KLC does provide a lot of grants, and in terms, our local United Way provided grants as well for a lot of people to go through. So that might be something to consider. I need to find my book that I have. It's called Burnout, and it was written by two women. And let me find that. I'm doing a quick check on that.
One of your citations had the authors listed too on the slides.
It's Nagoski or Nagoski, I'm not sure, but the last name is N as in Nancy, Agoski, and it's The Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. And not, I mean, probably if my private business is focusing in an area, it's more in women professional development. And what really intrigued me about this book was there are differences. Women have different stressors than men, good, bad, or otherwise. I'm not trying to stereotype in any way. And that doesn't mean that we have worse or harder stressors than others. They're just different. And this book really explored it from a female perspective. And I really was intrigued by that. But I've always heard about doing exercise, that'll help you. But for my intellectual side and being maybe, dare I say, a little lazy, then at that point, oh, God bless you, look at that. But at that point, I really think that it helped me intellectually to understand the completion of the stress cycle. And so I'm trying to do more exercise because I get it. I know I need it for overall health benefits. But furthermore, I think to be able to complete that stress cycle, other things are also good. And meditation has really been a big part of what has been helping me in the last several months. Just to give you an idea, and I'm sorry, Lisa, can you remind me, or Andrew, can you remind me when our time is up?
We're about there.
Okay, so the journey that I had at the chamber has been one that has really opened my eyes, and I fully realized that to get to the point of burnout, you have to be a flame that has been ignited and your flame was burning bright. And if you think about that flame needing a lot of energy, oil, resources to keep burning, it just can't, you just don't have the ability to always keep it. And so it's people that are at their most passionate, if they don't do this self-care and create the more resilient self, they're more at risk. You have to be burning brightly before you can burn out. And I have a feeling I'm talking to a group of highly dedicated, highly compassionate, highly invested people in their careers. And so it's certainly, I'm trying to learn as I go as well, because I wish I'd known now, and 9 years ago when I started this very intense journey being the chamber director, I wish I would have started with better habits and better practices. So my hope is that all of you will do so as well. So any other wrap-up questions that you have? Thanks to all of you for putting your comments on the group chat.
This is great, Tammy. We really appreciated that, and it was a fun presentation.
Well, thank you, Andrew. I behaved. I told Lisa Carlin